Conscious collaboration brings together entrepreneurs, changemakers, and thought leaders. We aim to highlight the people that embody the idea of aligned mind, body, and business. Each week, we share, discuss, and learn from the various experiences and ideas of our guest experts. Through our discovery, we find a path to an aligned mind, body, and business.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Emily. And together we are the Conscious Collaboration Podcast. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
I've seen you a lot in the last few days.
I know.
Even more than usual.
I know.
Hi again.
Yes. From daughter sleepover parties to working out to handing over items in a parking lot.
Oh, yeah. We do it all. So today's conversation is kind of a continued one that Lisa and I have been having, in particular over, since we've known each other, just because this is one of the things that we talk about, but in particular over just the last few days, with some different things that have been going on and some observations that we're making. And so while it is not, we're not a podcast exclusively for parents. We're not a podcast exclusively for single moms, anything like that. But it is my thought process that if we are to continue and build this legacy of thought leaders and change makers and entrepreneurs, even if we don't have children, the health of our children collectively is an extremely important, crucial topic to understand. And as you and I both definitely know, and as I'm sure any parents who do listen to this podcast could relate to, it is increasingly challenging to raise health-conscious children in the modern world. It's challenging enough to, remain health conscious ourselves all the time as health conscious adults, right? So to share, the most important information with our children, and then to hope that they use that to, make their choices out in the world, because obviously we can't and we shouldn't try to control everything that is going on with them, everything that they're eating and everything that they're doing or not doing, because we're not going to be able to do that, for forever. And we want to equip them with the ability to make these choices for themselves. So we wanted to gear the conversation today towards just our experiences with trying our best to raise health conscious children in the current environment, and the implications that has for us as entrepreneurs, right? Like there's a lot to kind of be talked about there, that it could be even uniquely challenging to do in that case, or in cases where you're co-parenting and maybe the other household doesn't quite have the same views of health and everything, and so that's kind of where I wanted to steer the conversation today, especially in light of the fact that collectively the health of our children is in a really dire state in this country. I keep kind of latching on to this idea of diabetes. All right. And to be clear, I'm referring to type 2 diabetes, used to be referred to as adult onset diabetes because children didn't get it. Well, that has changed drastically, and children do get it now. And so it's more appropriate to refer to it as type 2 diabetes. So just as kind of a brief, explanation, type 1 is where the pancreas just does not produce insulin. So you are required to be insulin dependent in that case. And that often does find its onset. Say they used to call it juvenile diabetes because it'd be kind of like in the 10, 11, 12 range when you would start to notice the effects or the symptoms of that. So for type 2 diabetes, it is instead where your pancreas does produce insulin, but your cells over time, for a variety of reasons, start to become resistant to the insulin. So then your body has to produce more and more and more to get the same effect. And, it's really strongly linked to basically everything that kills Americans for the most part, and that, drastically decreases their quality of life. That some people refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. And a lot of the vascular damage that occurs with the process of insulin resistance and moving into diabetes then can be a precursor to cardiovascular disease, stroke, all any number of issues. And so our children are getting, closer and closer to this state of being. And it's just not a good thing. And diabetes is just one thing. I think it's probably the hallmark red flag, if you will. But, there's a lot of other stuff going on, all the excess sort of device and artificial light exposure, with the lack of going outdoors as much, and a lot of sitting and sedentary lifestyle, and all kinds of things. We're just setting these guys up for failure. And so I want to talk about it, and I don't want to be, Debbie Downer about the whole thing, but I think it needs to be emphasized, like, how bad the situation actually is. And for adults, it is already the majority of adults in America who are in one form of metabolic dysfunction or another, and or heading that way. So it is already the majority with adults, and if the pattern continues, why wouldn't it be children next? So, and this is a problem. Why are we building what we're building as entrepreneurs and change makers and thought leaders if we're not building it for the people who come after us to thrive in as well? And if we can't even guide them to the basic point of making choices that create healthy cells in the body so that they can live a good quality of life without pain and disease, what are we doing? Why are we building this stuff? Why do we care if we're leaving it to a sickly generation? So, but to bring it down to a more practical level of, like, okay, well, what can we do about this? What actionably, besides just sit there and lament the horrible state of things? That's not really what I want to do. I think that anecdotally, you and I have done a pretty good job so far, in the face of a lot of challenges in that regard. And so, I think it's beneficial to talk about kind of some of the strategies we've used, some of the successes we've had, maybe some of the pitfalls that we've had, and some of the unique challenges that we've run into as entrepreneurs and single parents trying to do this thing, and trying to foster and I guess not foster, create children, raise children who have who make health conscious decisions, who are health conscious, and who can, use that skill of being health conscious to create a really great quality of life for themselves in the future. One of the, and we've been talking about this in particular. Lisa mentioned the slumber party over the weekend, right? So I kind of had a moment there where I was like, oh, okay, okay, I'm hosting this party, and it's kids, right? And it's a birthday, so there's treats expected, and okay, how do I manage this in a way where I'm not like the mom who, no kids want to go to that mom's house because she's trying to serve the kids like wheatgrass and whatever, but also not perpetuating the issues that I am so personally passionate about. And so it's just been at top of mind lately for me, especially with kind of trying to find solutions for that situation, which I've thought, this is really useful just on a day-to-day basis anyway, kind of taking these and breaking them down to your day-to-day. And so one of the biggest issues that I think is creating this problem is, of course, the proliferation of ultra processed foods, which we now know that kids' diets in America are comprised of 70% ultra processed foods at this point. So let's break down what that really means. Is a piece of ultra processed food inherently, bad, the worst thing? No. Like one Twinkie is not going to make or break anything. But when you think about, we are what we eat, right? And that's it's pretty literal, because what we consume, what we put in our body, then goes through a bunch of processes and becomes our body. It becomes the cells that our body is made of. So when you look at it in that simplistic of a way, I mean, you can feel the weight of the importance of actually eating real food, and the weight of, especially in a developing body and a developing brain, if we're comprising 70% of these cells of like ultra processed, chemical laden, just substances that the body is altogether unfamiliar with, some of them endocrine disruptor, known endocrine system disruptors, right? We're messing with hormones, a lot of pro-inflammatory sort of substances, a lot of substances considered what they now call obesogens. These foods are designed to make you eat more. They are designed to be so highly palatable. I mean, and it like pizza. Okay, pizza is my thing, and yes, you can make a really good quality pizza with good quality ingredients, but like I will also, totally get down with a giant slice of meat lovers, New York style, off the street, covered in grease and whatever. It tastes delicious, right? It tastes delicious. And of course, like adults have a hard enough time, making good choices around foods, clearly. With kids, who have even less knowledge and experience and understanding of what's happening, of course when given the option, they're going to choose the highly palatable things, you know, a lot of times at least. So the main driver of all this, I think, of course, comes down to us. And do we have our health conscious choices together, and are we modeling that? Right? And that goes, nutrition is an easy and obvious piece of this pie to talk about. But I mean, you can talk about all the other aspects of the health sphere too, even something like the way we use our phones, you know. And I think many, if not most parents, are, at least we're now kind of coming to terms with the fact that, okay, it's probably not a good thing to like have our kids on these devices like for long periods of time and as the default source of entertainment. And you know, but then what are we doing? You know, even in the little kind of off moments, are we using our phone in the most health conscious type of way? And what are we sort of modeling for our kids? So it definitely starts there. It definitely starts there. But there's inevitably going to be a lot that they're exposed to that we don't have control over. And so, what have been some ways for you to kind of try to guide your kids towards making healthier choices, even when you're not around them?
Gosh, me, I mean, I'm constantly learning. I feel like my kids were just, you know, they're 5 and 8, but I remember being a nervous wreck in the pediatrician office and having, you know, their initial first weigh-ins and check-ins and temperature reads and that type of thing, and being measured against, you know, the World Health Organization scale and the American CDC scale, and seeing just the difference in, for example, like average height and weight in Americans versus the World Health Organization. And I was seeing just such a discrepancy. I mean, I know our podcast is international, and I do a lot of work internationally and have a lot of colleagues internationally. Um, it's especially obvious in a world scope that the U.S. is really suffering pretty terribly right now, and a lot of it has to do with the nutrition and the our food sources, and not just what we're offering to our children, but what's available to us and what's being marketed to us is very processed. So I'm just as overwhelmed today at the kids being 5 and 8 as I was when they were newborn. My kids have always trended to be on the lower end of the scale. So they, you know, they're very active, just very naturally. I think a lot of that has to do with both of the households, my household and my co-parents' household. We're very active people. So it's a part of both of our lives to do things outside of the house. And, you know, aside from my entrepreneur life and my co-parents, um, you know, work life, which requires you to do a lot of sitting and computer work. Outside of that, our households are very, very active outside, outdoors, nature type of. We live in Florida, so we have so many sunny days to get us outside, and the kids have always been a part of that. So even in the very early stages of my businesses, the kids, especially Benjamin, the 5-year-old, went with me in a lot of job site type of things before he got into, you know, I didn't have him in daycare in early days. As a single mom, I took him with me. So he has always had a large exposure to being in different environments. And luckily, because of my career being in feng shui and it being very holistic, um, he's been around a lot of really healthy people. So he's been exposed to a lot of very healthy adults. Same as Ainsley, I'll say. And I think her daycare and schools have been very holistic minded, non traditional, in the sense that not pop culture oriented of what you might expect US kids to grow up. Um, so for me, it's learning every day. And I will say I make lots of mistakes, but the kids make great decisions on their own. So they'll even say, Mom, after I eat something healthy, can I have a treat? And they know the difference between healthy food and treat food. So they know that's in both households, that's important to eat the healthy food first before you have the treat if you want to have a treat. Um, in I think both of our households, my household and my co-parents' household, we're so involved with what the kids are doing. And we ask them a lot of questions. So they are very much empowered to make their own decisions and their own mistakes, and to talk about them. I think some of my best, habits that I've instilled in my own household is having reachable, healthy food, and especially during growth spurts, they were going through a phase where I was very much like the waitress, and it was like, "Mom, give me a snack, Mom, this, Mom, that," and like I could control what I was giving them. But now it's more like where the food is for a snack. So they know to go to the refrigerator and they know how to cut their own vegetables or cucumbers or get the carrots or whatever. But they also have access to snack food and it's there. It's just they choose the healthy food first. So it's not a lot for me to chase them and, um, take away the food from them because they're mishandling it. They actually just do a very good job of it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can take a little bit of credit for that. And I think
Well, of
I
course,
think
yeah.
I think all the adults in their lives can take credit for that. Um, I think we're very blessed that they've been surrounded by very healthy adults with good habits. Even their grandparents will take them out for fast food on like a grandparent day. And the kids they love the fast food because they get a toy, but they don't eat the fast food. So they still would rather have something cooked from home. So I'm very grateful and thankful for that. They don't, they've seen soda, they've taken sips of soda, but they don't ask for soda. So and I think the modeling of good behavior in the adults around them has done everything to keep them healthy and in check and active. Even just me taking them to the gym on workout days with you and
Mhm.
they're active while we're active. So I think it has everything to do, as we talk about conscious collaboration, it's surrounding yourself with people that you want to see your kids model their behavior.
Yeah, totally. And you know, and uh that's definitely not always the case. As far as, every person that they have continuous exposure to being, really truly living, a healthy lifestyle. It's a spectrum, of course. And, um, I don't think, well, uh, no, that's wrong. She's been exposed definitely to all places on the spectrum of healthy living, and So I've found it more of a challenge in some regards, but I think that, yeah, obviously the modeling of it, that, normalizing, like, we move our bodies in some way every day. We do stuff to get strong. We do stuff to go outside and walk, and normalizing that is very important. And I think even if you only have one, household really modeling that, I think it's super helpful.
Yeah.
And I would think that, and I think that the same kind of goes for the food, because you can't control what other people, when you're not with them, are offering your kid. And maybe for a time you can control whether they take it or not, but not really, right? And so I think instilling that habit, I think, of eating the healthy food first, um, in particular, I think we shift this right from the adults to the kids. Some of my favorite advice, right, or one of my favorite hacks to tell people is to seek out the protein first. And even if you eat something sweet after that, you'll be way less likely to overeat on something sweet. And of course, I'm not telling the kids all this about blood sugar and stuff, but it will also then dampen that subsequent blood sugar and insulin response, so that you're not having these big spikes and dips and crashes and the negative symptoms that kind of go along with that. And then, continuously doing that to your body day after day after day and creating that insulin resistant state. So I like to latch on to that, like, hey, eat some protein first and it'll help you feel more full when you eat your sweet. And yeah, just normalizing that, okay, we gotta get our nutrition needs met first, and then we can look at the treat, right? And trying not too much to demonize anything, or get too much into the morality, like good food, bad food, that kind of thing, or definitely not leaning into like a restriction type of mindset, because just like with adults, that will then perpetuate a more binge type of response, ultimately. So I think, yeah, I like that too. Just kind of instilling this policy of, we eat our healthy food first, we eat our protein first, we make sure our needs are met first, and then we can look at the treat, if and so while does it work all the time when she's not with me? No, it doesn't. But I've, especially lately, heard her, kind of, repeating these things and making the choices that way. And, I'm going to have this piece of turkey first, then I'll have the waffle, kind of thing, because I know it'll help me feel full and feel better. And I won't just keep wanting more and more and more waffles, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good strategy. And kind of to touch on what you said too, by the way, guys, yes, we are both still learning, always. We're always still learning. I, by no means, even though I am, in the nutrition and health and fitness space, I am no means an expert on how we do this with our kids. I want to be in the conversation, just as much as anybody else. I just think it's really important. But that's one strategy that I've used for sure. And I kind of want to get into, like, if somebody's listening to this and they haven't made this transition, or they're trying to make the transition to a healthier life for themselves, right? And there's just probably a lot of people in this situation. They've got a kid or they've got children already who are used to one lifestyle, and now, transitioning the whole family into another lifestyle, can be even more challenging. And I would say maybe I experienced that on a slight level, because we definitely, when Olivia was born and when she was a baby and stuff, I didn't have the same grasp on what real health was as I do now. So you kind of let some of those other things creep in there. But it's a challenge. It's especially a challenge if they're already used to eating one way and then moving into another way. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of fall off the wagon, because it could involve some nights of like refusing to eat, or arguments, fights. They're not going to like it. They're not going to like it. So trying to find a way to ease that transition so that people don't just say screw it and drop out of the game completely and just go back to the way it was. And that resonates with me, because I've had to, on more than a handful of occasions, resort to the convenience food of whatever that may be, whether it's I had to get something from a gas station or a fast food, had to figure out some kind of solution in a moment where maybe I was tired, I had a million things to do that day, whatever the case may be, I was traveling. And so then it just comes to like, okay, well, I just have to feed the kid, like how are we going to do this? So finding strategies to mitigate that, and having them ahead of time, I think, is super important, so that when you're in that moment, you've already got the tools to kind of guide your family through the transition. I think talking about things in a way that's not good or bad or demonizing or whatever is important. I think talking about things in a positive light of like all the sort of wins or the positives that you get from really feeding yourself nutritious food, from moving your body, from touching nature, from turning the devices off every now and again, connecting with friends, just playing, right? Just playing like a normal kid. I think highlighting the positives of all that is a really good way to kind of ease that transition.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, I don't know about you, but I have some of the best conversations with the kids, taking them to school and bringing them home from school and asking them, how are their friends? What are the situations? And, kids notice in each other their habits. So I've had my kids worry about someone that doesn't have food, or um, not making healthy choices, or that type of discussion happens, and just asking more what they think about it. um, they know a lot more than what I even realize, and I realize they also help each other a lot. Like, there is um you know I think the new generation doesn't get a lot of credit for being as loving and caring, supportive as they really are, because I think a lot of older generations always look down on the newer generations, like, oh, they're a lost cause, they're just going to ruin everything. But this one really just seems so genuine and caring, so much more. I don't know when that change happened, but they seem to have concern for someone that's struggling, and that I'm really hopeful for. But aside from the nutrition, at least in my own kids, there's just such a more mature awareness of anxiety, and a lot of the vanity stuff that we talk about, measuring up in these ways. So, really, and I don't do the best job of it, just talking about devices, but I try to watch shows with my kids, if they're watching something on YouTube, to be aware of it, not not so much to restrict them, but to ask them questions like, why are you interested in this? Like, what is going on here? What do you think about that? Do you think that's real? Because they're gonna find it somewhere, in my opinion.
Mhm.
They all talk, they speak this language that we don't understand. I know there's been a lot of social media with the jokes around trying to decode this language that the kids have developed. It makes no sense. I heard some of it, at the sleepover party when we were hanging out. I was like, what is this? They have their own language. We had our own language when we were that age. But I think in terms of being an entrepreneur, a visionary, change maker, like we're super busy and the world's so chaotic and we're working 24/7 a lot of times, even if we're not working, some part of us is. And just trying to find ways to be fully present for kids to make sure that they feel supported and connected and that they're visible and that we trust them to make good decisions, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that is important. I think that once you've given them the information, right, that you convey to them, that you trust them to make the right decisions for themselves. I think that's a good point. Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty hopeful for the future. We're always wondering if the kids are okay, given that we're so subject to so much chaos and anxiety as adults. Like, are our kids going to be okay? Like, they're witnessing this. I think they are going to be okay, but we can do a better job for ourselves and for them. In trying to let go of our attachment to busyness and
Hmm.
really centering back in on um, what's important for us in terms of holistic health. Are we, you know, to your point, are we? I'll reflect back on this. So, like even me, as I was like rehabbing my shoulder this summer, my kids were aware of that. Like I took them to appointments in the morning. They did the extra exercises with me, just to see, that, yeah, sometimes we're going to fall apart a little bit and we need to put extra focus to rebuild. And that, I always say to them, and I am an older mom, I didn't have my kids until late 30s and early 40s. But we're doing these things active so we can live longer together
Hmm.
and be more active together. And that really speaks to them. They know that's important. They know they want to be strong enough to be able to help each other. Um, and they're in support of me being healthy and active so I can live with them longer and play with them longer.
And I think using those words is important too, strong, healthy, active, um, as these like, really positive words and what we seek to strive for. Because when we were growing up, uh, a lot of us, had lived in the generation where we heard a lot about maybe our mom was always on a diet or talking about diet or talking about weight, and talking about health. I'm using quotations here. Health, because weight on the scale alone in either direction is not the only indicator of health by any means. But this sort of weight and diet obsession that we grew up around, unfortunately now it kind of falls on us to steer the ship back in the right direction. So I think using these positive words of vitality around why we're doing what we're doing is super important. Like Popeye with the spinach. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
We
Popeye with the
want to be
spinach.
strong. Right?
Yeah. There's, also, I think you do this with Olivia as well too. A lot of times at home, I'll put on the radio, and we'll listen to music sometimes and do like our little dance parties and stuff because practicing the movement
Yeah.
that everybody recommended over the summer more with the kids. But I do play for them a lot of positive. There's some podcasts I listen to that do a lot of really good positive scripting around. For example, this morning we were listening to like all the reasons why you should take the courageous path and the comfort path. So we listened to that as we were getting ready, and they were asking questions about that. And a lot of that talk was around, you're going to be in uncomfortable situations. And if you're not in uncomfortable situations, it means you're not necessarily growing. And do you always just want to be comfortable or do you want to be brave? And so we were talking about that in terms of school because both of them, and Olivia too, back to school, new grade, new situations, new sports, new activities. And these little kids have heavy anxiety around stuff already. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, what? An 8-year-old with anxiety? Well, yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
thing. But, so I try to, in the environment, expose them to things that are, not just pop music necessarily. I think a lot of the pop music is good, but also just more mind, I don't want to say, I'm not trying to brainwash them, but more positive words.
But the content that you consume around them, yeah, they're consuming it too, even if they don't say anything at the time, they're soaking everything up. Like a sponge. So I think that's super important, and sometimes maybe it's love is blind. But most of the time, if that's like
But you
what
can
you're
always have
consuming
a
all the time.
conversation.
I just
You
said
can
that
still,
because that's actually Olivia put it on one day, and I'm like, "You like the show?"
I mean,
I did get sucked into it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I got sucked into
it's in a
it.
lot of people's households. And if she's at someone
Yeah,
else's house even and watching it, it's a pop culture thing. But
yeah,
like even that kind of stuff, you can talk about healthy relationships and
yeah, exactly. And yeah, right. It gives you an opportunity to talk about it, even if it's like a not how you would want them to
right.
to think and do and behave. So even if, yeah, I guess even if the content isn't the greatest, like, yeah, it's also like I don't think that sheltering from everything is the answer either. I think you're exactly right. It's being a participant in that and talking about it, and then again trusting them to make the right decisions. That was always kind of the policy that my parents had for me around music and TV and stuff like that. They never really censored what I consumed, but they would. I mean, and maybe they wouldn't sit there and talk to me about the DMX CD that I was playing, while I was getting ready for school. But they would talk to me about life things and then say, okay, well, that you're not supposed to like go sell drugs and commit violence. So, okay, listen to the listen to the music,
Right.
do you? But we trust you to make the right decisions out here in these streets. And I thought that was, I mean, arguably, I turned out all right, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm still grow. I think I'm always going to feel like I'm growing up in some way, but it's not just about making rules for the kids. It's also about empowering them because we know we're not always going to be there.
Mhm. And
So,
we know, like, time and time again, this is just human nature. If you ban, demonize, restrict, right, make a big deal about not doing something, the rebellious
mhm,
nature is going to come out at some point, and they're going to
Yeah, I
go do
mean,
the thing even harder. If you never
rebellion
let your
or
kids see a slice
yeah,
of pizza, right, or have a piece of cake at a birthday party, like when they do get out of your reins, it's just going to be, all hell's going to break loose.
even worse
So
than rebellion, I think, is the restriction on thing or demonizing things. It creates shame for them when they do
yeah,
consume
yeah,
whatever it is.
right,
So at
right.
the
They'll
root,
hide
it,
stuff. Yeah,
it's there's craving something they shouldn't have and then eating it and then being shameful, which is like the lowest
yep,
vibration you can be in.
yep,
And then to come out
yep.
of that is especially for a little one that's not getting support and help and you have no awareness around it,
Right.
is probably going to live in a low vibration for a while.
And a lot of us can connect with that as adults, you know what I mean? I have moved through a lot of relationship with food issues, but I've definitely had them in my life. I think that's an important part of my experience, so that I have that experience as I'm interacting with clients who are going through these same things. But I mean, that is a process that a lot of adults can relate to, that sort of shame and the hiding and the demonizing and the morality um, around food or habit, any sort of health related habits, working out, not working out, whatever. And you know, if it, like, we can resonate with how hard that is now. And so just if we're set up that way from
Yeah.
childhood, like it's a programming that's going to be really hard to deprogram, um, the more we kind of hammer that in. So, I don't have all the solutions, but I think it's really important just to have the conversation. I think it's
Yeah.
important to have the conversation with other parents. I think it's important to have the conversation with non-parents, because, and to be honest, a lot of the things that we're talking about, I mean, can apply directly even to people who don't have kids. Um, because because it does start with modeling it yourself. And just because you don't necessarily have someone that lives with you to model it for, does that mean that you're just not going to bother to take that healthy path,
Well, if we desire any hope for the future, even if we have kids or not,
Mhm.
um, and the kids are watching everybody,
The
we're
kids are watching everybody, right? So if the majority is still, on that other, then it just normalizes
they're the ones that are going to be taking care of us when we're
poor
old.
health,
So
poor metabolic health, right? And are they are they going to be able to do that if they're in poor health themselves at a much earlier age? So we gotta pay attention to this stuff, and we got to start having the conversations with other adults and with our kids, and really owning that responsibility to model better habits and behaviors as a society for ourselves and for our kids and for the future of everything that we're trying to build,
Mhm.
by being these thought leaders, change makers, and entrepreneurs in the first place.
Yeah, who are we going to pass the baton to?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'm curious to hear what everybody thinks at home, if it resonates with them in any way. And certainly I can understand there's a lot of people who are going to say there's a reason why I chose not to have children. But we all exist in a society and we can all recognize there's a great need to uplift everybody as a whole, includes the children and those that are modeling after our own behavior. And all we can do is try our best with better awareness, I think. But I would love to hear everyone's personal experiences. Maybe we can continue the discussion inside of Conscious Collaboration Collective. the Close and Private Facebook group and have that discussion there. What does that look like for you as you're out and about with friends, coworkers? Even I'm just so pleased to see so many people so many entrepreneurs are involving their kids. The education starts before school, that you can have an entrepreneurial mindset, and this is how we do it. And it can start when you're as young as our kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, let's hear it. I want to hear other people's strategies and kind of what they think.
Yeah, and I still have a lot to learn, so
Yeah,
for sure. But I'm looking for those tips too from everybody out there. And
let's be the change makers on this one. This is worth being a change maker on.
Yes, for sure. Well, it's been good. I'm excited to go pick my kids up from school. They're big listeners of the podcast, by the way. So one day we'll have
them. our littlest, biggest fans.
Yes, our littlest, biggest friend. Well, yeah, they will. One day we'll have bring a kid to work day.
Yeah.
Have them in the discussion. But yeah, the kids are watching, guys.
Creepy. That they are.
They can be very creepy.
The kids are creepy and they're watching.
Sometimes they tap you on the shoulder.
Be good at it.
Yes, very scary.
Yes. Olivia prides herself on being creepy, so.
Yeah, I know. They get a kick out of it.
You can be creepy, just eat your protein first.
Oh, yeah, she does a good job of it.
She does.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, Emily. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you liking, sharing, and subscribing with your friends and your family, and maybe even sit down and listen with your little one. All right.
Talk to y'all in 5.
Bye.
Thank y'all so much for listening to our podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends so they can join our circle of collaboration on this journey. You can find us on Instagram at Conscious Collaboration Podcast, on Spotify, iTunes, and Audible, to name a few. Please join us next time for another deep dive into how you can live life in more alignment, mind, body, and business. Send us your questions and comments in our DMs or email us at consciouscollaborationpodcast@gmail.com. See you in 5 minutes.